Once again, we pick up the second the last one ended. Victor Crowley is seemingly dead after taking multiple shotgun blasts straight to the face. In fact, his face is completely gone. Mary Beth, played by Danielle Harris, starts walking away only to get jumped again by Crowley, but she manages to slice him in half with a giant chainsaw. Crowley, once again, seemingly dead. Now, after Mary Beth kills Crowley, she wanders through the swamp until she comes across a police station, and she walks in holding a shotgun and Crowley's scalp. The police then congratulate her on a job well done and throw her a parade in her honor. Just kidding, she's hosed down and thrown in a jail cell. From there, we meet the colorful cast of characters, including a reporter who used to be married to the sheriff who has become a Crowley nut. She's convinced the legendary ghost isn't dead. In fact, come nightfall, he's going to come back completely regenerated, and the only way to put him to rest for good is to get the remains of Crowley's father and bring them to the rampaging ghost. One thing I like about this series is there's no time gap between these three movies. They pick up right where the last one ended. There's no time wasted trying to catch the viewer up with what happened in between these movies because it's one long, continuous, and ridiculous story. I liked this movie a lot more than the second one. In Hatchet II, there's a big lull after she escapes where everything just sort of drags on until they finally get back to the swamp. In this one, she escapes, gets arrested, and almost immediately a group of paramedics get called out to the scene, followed by a bunch of officers and even a SWAT team. So the action just keeps on going, even though there are some side trips to see what Mary Beth is doing in her jail cell, so you get some time to breathe, but even those scenes are interesting enough. One thing I really enjoy about this franchise is how it manages to get horror icons to play bit parts in the most over-the-top ways. Not counting Kane Hodder, there's been Robert Englund, Tony Todd, and this one manages to get Sid Haig and Derek Mears. More on him later. It's a lot of fun seeing these iconic actors playing pretty much cartoon characters in these movies. Hatchet III, much like its predecessors, is so over-the-top bloody it ventures into parody, which is the point of these movies. You'll have scenes with Crowley ripping a person apart, and each time he tears off a limb, you get another explosion of blood, like they're just balloons waiting to be popped. There's no way anybody has that much blood in them, but it's fun seeing the creativity that went into these kills and the way the movie goes out of its way to douse everyone in blood. Derek Mears, who I mentioned earlier, is one of the highlights of this movie. He plays a grizzled FBI agent who absolutely refuses to call in backup for the National Guard, despite coming across the scene with at least 20 bodies in various states of ripped apart. It's a fun little touch because the bad guy, Victor Crowley, is played by Kane Hodder, who you may know played Jason Voorhees in 4 movies, while Derek Mears played him in 2009 remake. He's built up as a big badass like the fat bald dude from the second one, but the payoff is nowhere near as good. He gets his spine and skull ripped out almost immediately in their showdown. Although I gotta say the death is fitting because Mears also played the classic Predator in the movie Predators. I talk about the silly things in this movie because you don't need a plot, so I give it a lot more leeway than any other more serious ones, but it seriously lacks in the side characters. I'm not saying they're bad, they're usually really good, but in these movies, everyone but the main character is pretty much a horror movie trope. They're there to awkwardly shoehorn some backstory about themselves before they get killed. In most horror movies, you can guess who's going to get it, but there may be a surprise or two. In this franchise, that's not the case at all. There's no thrill of the chase because every single time Crowley is pursuing someone, if they're not a main character, they're not getting away, not even for a minute. These movies are chock full of interesting and sometimes fun individuals, but there's more creativity in their deaths than who they were as characters. But I mean, it's fine. I know what I'm getting into with this series, so whatever. But, speaking of side characters, in every movie so far, including the latest Victor Crowley, which I have not seen yet, it has the actor Perry Shen, and in this one he actually survives. I loved him in the first, thought he was enjoyable in the second, and he's very likable in this one. I'm glad he sticks around. Like I said, he's only a side character in every single movie, but he's one of the most memorable. Another slight nit I have, and this is with horror movies in general, it's that scene anytime someone downs the monster, they think they've won, then they switch to a camera angle they haven't used once before. It's the shot where the hero looks at his friend sitting behind the camera, only for the killer to appear behind them so we can see the realization slowly dawn on the overzealous person's face before they get murdered. Enough already. We've seen it 1,000 times before. You're not fooling anyone. Those are my only two complaints about this movie. Well, and the director's mean-spirited comments about the actress Tamara Feldman, who was switched out with Daniel Harris, but that doesn't really have anything to do with the content of the movie. Summed up, it's not as good as the first, but it's better than the second by a decent margin. And lastly, after seeing these three movies and him being significantly more powered up each time and getting some time to think about it, there's still no way Crowley can take Jason. 7.5 Dr. Chainsaws.